Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I think by now, because you've presided over this House for over a year, you are aware of the character of most of us in this House. Mr. Speaker, in your communication about the President's address, you reminded this House of the requirement of the standing orders that in an address to the House, the head of state shall be heard in silence. Now, Mr. Speaker, knowing myself and knowing the President, Mr. Speaker, I chose not to attend the President's address to the National Assembly because I knew for a fact that at the first instance where I felt he was giving misleading information to the country, I would not be able to manage myself to keep quiet. I would have been strongly pushed to say something. And Mr. Speaker, I would have run afoul of the rules of this House. And although the Speaker of the Senate might be lenient because they know me, I was not very sure about the Speaker of the National Assembly, whether he would extend some of the courtesies that you have extended us in this House. Mr. Speaker, I suspected that if I went for that speech, I probably would be serving now an expulsion from the House for a minimum of 6 months. And I will go into the reasons why, Mr. Speaker, I did not trust the head of state to paint the true picture of the state of the nation. In my mind, Mr. Speaker, the state of the nation is the state of the people. Senator Mungatana has spoken very eloquently here about the state of the creditors of this country, that the creditors who gave us money during Eurobond are happy they are going to be receiving their payment. He should be asking himself, how many Kenyans are still able to service their own debts? That is the state of the nation that I would want to address. Mr. Speaker, so what I did, I joined a group of friends, and you will indulge me here, in playing a drinking game. Mr. Speaker, the rules of the game are very simple. Every single time you thought that a statement that was untrue, or even partially untrue, from the head of state, you had to take a shot of whiskey. Mr. Speaker, needless to say, by the end of the President's speech, we were extremely inebriated because of the half-truths and open lies that we believe the President told before the House of Parliament. And I will get into the specifics. Mr. Speaker, my expectation has always been that during a State of the Nation address, because the Constitution requires it.
What is your point of order, Senator Mungatana?
I know the Honorable Sifuna could be very passionate, but is the use of the word open lies, referring to the speech by His Excellency the President, parliamentary? And if not, can he withdraw and restrict to parliamentary language, Mr. Speaker?
Senator Sifuna, I think the use, you can still express yourself without necessarily using such words that may not be parliamentary.
Mr. Speaker.
And I know exactly, you understand exactly what I'm saying.
Mr. Speaker, replace every time I've used the word open lies with untruths or misleading or what other synonym is there? Yeah, I think I do not mean
not factual.
Or non-factual, yes, Mr. Speaker, and I will demonstrate point by point what I thought was not factual or was misleading. Mr. Speaker, my expectation with these speeches, ever since I became acquainted with the Constitution, is that you must address yourself to the steps taken, very specific, steps taken and progress achieved in realizing the values under Article 10. And I was specifically looking out for the address to address 3 values set out under Article 10. The first one, Mr. Speaker, is national unity and inclusiveness, which I will take together. Mr. Speaker, we live in an era where we are being told every single day that, in fact, if you did not vote for this government, you have no shares in this government, and that you should expect nothing at all. What I expected the head of state to do is to tell us that ever since those pronouncements have been made, I have taken certain steps to rein in members of my administration who might not understand what Article 10 speaks about when it speaks of inclusivity and national unity, and that we give an undertaking, or he gives an undertaking, that we will not hear about that issue of shareholding anymore. Mr. Speaker, the first untruth that I want to invite this House to agree with me that I encountered is in paragraph 9 of the President's speech, where he acknowledges that it is the duty of all of us as leaders to listen keenly and comply with the people's wishes. Now, that is where I took my first shot, Mr. Speaker, because I know for a fact that Kenyans have spoken over many, many policies that this administration has put in place, including the taxation measures that have been imposed through the Finance Bill of 2023, but this government has chosen to ignore the people's pleas and, in fact, to do the exact opposite of what the people have been asking it to do. Mr. Speaker, the other value that I wanted him to speak to is the question of the steps taken by his government and the progress that has been achieved in strengthening democracy. Now, here I went for a double shot, Mr. Speaker, and I will explain why. The first reason, Mr. Speaker, and Honorable Khalwale has spoken very eloquently about what their generation did in order for them to achieve the freedoms that we enjoy during this time, Mr. Speaker, including the freedom of speech, and I suspect, Khalwale, even the freedom of demonstration and the right to picket. I saw myself, leaders of the church, being bludgeoned here. As a child, I saw those pictures of Reverend Joya in the streets here being bludgeoned by police officers just because he was exercising his right to protest. This same regime, this same government, Mr. Speaker, is doing the very same things. In fact, this year alone, it has bludgeoned more people than Moi bludgeoned during the time for multi-party democracy. As a leader of the opposition, I know that I have a right under Article 35, a right that Boni and his generation fought very strongly for me to be able to express my disaffection with the policy of government by protesting, by picketing. Now, I don't know how I can define picketing for my brother, Honorable Khalwale, but picketing includes putting a sufuria on your head. That sufuria on my head is not the solution I'm proffering, because I had proffered a solution that at the moment, because Kenyans are going through a difficult time, Mr. Speaker, please retain the subsidies. Please do not increase the taxation on fuel. Those are the proposals that came from my mouth, Mr. Speaker. So that when you see me putting a sufuria on my head, that is not the solution. That is me picketing and drawing your attention to the solutions I'm proffering. But you have refused to listen to the people of Kenya. And yet the president would come and stand before the hallowed House of Parliament and say that he acknowledges that as a leader, he has a responsibility to listen to the people of Kenya. Mr. Speaker, contrary to what many people believe, I actually admire Senator Khalwale, because I have studied his history. You are some of the people who have inspired some of us to come to this house. We know your skills as a debater. But Mr. Khalwale, Senator Khalwale, sometimes I understand your position as a whip in this house of the majority. You are handicapped. Some things you don't want to say openly here on the floor or even in public gatherings. Senator Khalwale, those confessions you have made here, that in fact in your stellar career as a politician, you have never been as unpopular as you are right now. And it is not because of your undoing. I honestly believe Khalwale has not changed. The only thing that has changed, Senator Khalwale, is that you are defending the indefensible. The people of Malinya, I can confirm, they still love their senator. But they don't agree with the policies of the government that you support. And I wish, Mr. Speaker, the same admissions that have been made by Senator Khalwale on this floor would come from the mouth of the president. That he acknowledges that, in fact, some of the policies that he has put in place have made his government unpopular because they do not resonate with what Kenyans want to do. Mr. Speaker, let me now come to what I consider untruths, misleading statements about the state of the nation. Mr. Speaker, the president spoke about many things, and these matters have been fact-checked by many people, including reputable media houses here, on if indeed what he was saying is true. Let me start by the easiest, because, Mr. Speaker, outside there, I'm known as the permanent representative of the people of Kenya on matters of unga. And it is because, as a lawyer, I think I am an authority on food.